Welcome to Nosleep Radio, the channel that brings you chilling tales of horror and the supernatural. We hope our stories give you moments of relaxation and help you stay focused as you work or unwind. Today's episode features a story submitted by one of our listeners. The story is titled, "The Mysterious Rules of the High-Speed Train."
Yesterday was the grand opening of the new high-speed train. Starting today, I no longer have to worry about driving all the way to work. I feel so happy to have it. Without it, the ridiculously long commute to that damned company I work at would continue to drain even more of my time. The road from my home to the office stretches nearly 60 kilometers. Every day, I had to wake up earlier than most people just to prepare for the trip. I've already lost so much precious time with my children because of this company. No more mornings together at breakfast. No more nights telling stories before bed. It breaks my heart to think about the moments I should have spent with my family. My name is Deshawn. I live in a densely populated area with my wife and 2 children. Because of the exhausting commute to work, my relationship with my kids has grown distant. Each evening, I return home completely drained, longing only to rest, with no energy left for conversation. In the past, our nights were filled with laughter, talks, and play, but now everything has changed. So when I heard the news about the high-speed train, I was thrilled. It not only saves me commuting time, but also gives me hope of reclaiming time with my family. I imagined calm mornings without rushing, evenings spent by my children's side, helping with homework and listening to their stories. This morning, I woke up unusually excited. I quickly got ready and left the house. The station was just a short walk away. When I arrived, I saw a large crowd waiting, all sharing the same enthusiasm I felt. I stepped onto the train, found a seat by the window, and let myself sink into it. As the train rolled forward, the soft hum of the wheels against the rails and the scenery rushing past gave me a sense of peace. I closed my eyes and smiled, thinking about what the future might bring. But my joy didn't last long. An elderly man sitting beside me began speaking about strange rules on the high-speed train. He said there were unspoken rules here that no one dared break. At first, I laughed, thinking he was joking, but the seriousness in his face made me uneasy. "What rules?" I asked, half joking, half curious. His deep, mysterious gaze met mine. "You'll find out soon enough if you want to stay safe." His words sent a chill down my spine. I tried to shake it off and focus on the relief of my shortened commute, but inside, a cloud of unease lingered over my thoughts. The next morning, I returned to the station, still eager about my new commute. The train saved me so much time, allowing me to enjoy breakfast with my family and even read before work. Yet the old man's words still haunted me. I convinced myself it was nothing more than an old man's tales, but worry still gnawed at me. That day, I sat in a different seat, away from the window. A young woman beside me was reading a book. I greeted her, and soon we began chatting. Her name was Lynn. She, too, worked far from home and had been using the train for a few days already. I told her about the old man's warning. Lynn laughed softly, saying she had also heard about the hidden rules. According to her, only frequent passengers gradually came to understand them. "I don't think it's something to be afraid of," she said. "But if you want, I can share a few of the things I know." Curious, I nodded, and she began. "Never change seats while the train is moving. People who did so often met with misfortune. lost belongings, or even small accidents. Never speak loudly. Everyone on board either remained silent or whispered. Lynn recalled a man who once spoke on his phone loudly, and suddenly the train's power went out for several minutes. Everyone believed it was punishment for breaking the rule. Never fall asleep on the train. This one she stressed the most. A friend of hers had once fallen asleep and awoke in a completely unfamiliar place, with no sign of where he was. It took him hours to return to familiar ground. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Even if I couldn't be sure they were true, I decided it was better to be cautious. In the days that followed, I obeyed the rules, never switching seats, staying quiet, and forcing myself not to fall asleep. Everything seemed normal, and I began to grow used to the routine of riding the train.
However, one morning when I boarded the train, I saw the elderly man from before sitting in his usual seat. He nodded at me, as if greeting me. Summoning all my courage, I went up to him and asked more about those strange rules. He smiled, an enigmatic, unreadable smile. "Only time will tell," he said slowly, but added, "Always be careful and listen to what's around you." His words made me think more about the rules and mysteries of this high-speed train. I promised myself to stay alert and cautious, not only for my own sake, but for the family who waited for me every day. The train's mysteries had only just begun, and I intended to explore them carefully, with curiosity and caution. In the days that followed, I grew used to the new rhythm of commuting. Everything seemed to run smoothly, and I felt more comfortable. The stories about hidden rules still haunted me, but I tried not to let them dominate my life. Then one morning, something happened that changed everything. I boarded as usual and sensed tension in the carriage. People looked anxious and suspicious. I sat near the rear and began to read. Before long, loud voices came from the front. A group of young men were joking and speaking loudly, blatantly ignoring the unspoken rule about speaking softly. They even moved between seats. One sat in someone else's place just as that person stood to get off. A cold unease rose in me. I remembered Lynn's warning about changing seats while the train was moving.
In the dark, I heard heavy, hurried footsteps and then a scream from the front of the carriage that made my spine chill. When the lights came back on, one of the young men lay motionless on the floor, eyes wide with terror. His friend stood frozen, pale and shaken. The elderly man I had met earlier appeared from nowhere, leaned over the fallen youth and whispered something in his ear. The young man stammered and trembled, but could not speak. Everyone watched in horror, too afraid to move. "That is the price you pay for breaking the rules," the old man said, his voice cold. "This train is more than a vehicle. It has its own rules. Disobey, and you will face the consequences." I felt as if I were in a nightmare. The stories Ling had told, the old man's warnings, everything suddenly seemed frighteningly real. People's faces were full of fear and anxiety. The train kept running, but the atmosphere remained tense. No one spoke. Everyone silently hoped the journey would soon end. When the train stopped at the next station, the group of young men hurriedly got off, leaving behind a hollow, heavy feeling. I continued my trip, but I could no longer feel at ease. Those hidden rules were no longer idle tales. They demanded respect. I reminded myself every day to be cautious, not just for myself, but for my family waiting at home. After that incident, I became more careful. I didn't change seats, I kept quiet, and I resisted falling asleep on the train. But life and work got more busy, and I grew more tired. One morning, after a late night at work and too little sleep, I felt utterly exhausted. I chose a seat by the window, intending to doze for only a moment, but sleep overcame me quickly. When I opened my eyes, I felt immediate bewilderment.
The train was still moving, but everything outside the window was completely unfamiliar. There were no skyscrapers or the usual sights. Instead, the landscape was a barren wasteland with no sign of life. Other passengers were waking up too, many wearing the same frightened look. My mind shot back to Lynn's warning about falling asleep. My heart pounded. Where had I been taken? I stood and looked for the elderly man, but he was nowhere to be found. I only saw bewildered, frightened faces. I walked down the carriage to investigate. Doors were locked tight. People were trying to open them, but to no avail. Nervous whispers spread through the car, creating a stifling, tense atmosphere. Eventually, I met a middle-aged man who seemed calmer than most. He looked at me with a knowing expression and said he had experienced this before. "We are in a place that does not belong to our world," he explained. "I don't know exactly where, but I know we must find a way back." I asked him about rules and how to return, but he just shook his head. There were no clear instructions. We could only hope the train would bring us home if we followed what had been warned. A sense of helplessness overwhelmed me. I didn't know how long I would be lost here or how to get back. But one thing was certain, I had to try. Not only for myself, but for the family waiting for me. I returned to my seat to keep calm, closed my eyes, and searched for a solution. The sounds around me faded, and for a moment I felt as if I were slipping into another dream.
When I opened my eyes again, I was still on the train, but the world outside had changed once more. This time, I saw lush green fields and small houses, like a pastoral painting. I didn't know exactly where we were, but I felt we were getting closer to an answer. This strange journey was not only about movement, it was about uncovering hidden secrets. I realized I could not live in fear. I needed to find a way out of this place and return to normal life. First, though, I had to understand more about the strange rules and mysteries of this high-speed train. Waking up in that alien world, I felt as though I had been swept into a landscape full of mystery and danger. The train kept running, but what I saw outside the window became increasingly bizarre. No longer were they simple fields or houses. I began to see terrifying, surreal images. First came monstrous, grotesque creatures, enormous beings with sallow skin and glowing red eyes roaming the wastelands, sometimes approaching the tracks and staring at the train. Their roars echoed into the carriage, making everyone inside fearful. Once, as the train passed through a dense forest, shadowy figures darted between the trees. On closer look, I realized they were ghostly apparitions, pale, fleeting shapes that moved like flashes and whispered coldly. I felt a chill thinking of the horror stories I'd heard. Other passengers noticed the presence of these spirits, and the carriage's tension mounted. Not long after, we passed through an area where giant snakes slithered over hills and into caves. Their long bodies glistened in the sun, and they hissed in a way that rattled my nerves. Once, a massive serpent even tried to rear up at the train, but the train sped forward and left it behind. As I struggled to understand what was happening, the train entered high, jagged mountains. I saw colossal giants standing atop the peaks, watching the train with curious, powerful eyes. They towered tens of meters tall, muscled and stone-like. Some held boulders, as if they might fling them at the passing train. The train slid beneath them, and I could feel the weight of their gaze.
These dreadful creatures made me feel as if I were trapped in an endless nightmare. I didn't know what else might appear next, but I knew I had to remain alert. The hidden rules of the train were no longer just guidelines for safety. They were keys to surviving in this hellish world. The lights dimmed again as we entered another tunnel, and a thick darkness swallowed the view. I closed my eyes to collect myself. The noises outside, the hiss of snakes, the groans of monsters, the whispering ghosts blurred,
but I knew these were only part of the challenges I would face. I needed to find a way back home. Whatever it took, I had to be brave. When the light returned, the train emerged into another strange land. The scenery was unreal. The journey seemed endless. After the train passed out of the tunnel into this new territory, I began to get used to the odd phenomena, but what came next was worse than anything before. One afternoon, while the train skimmed across a vast plain, I noticed small pinpoints of light in the sky. At first I thought they were stars or distant aircraft, but the lights moved in odd patterns. Focusing, I realized these were not plane lights. They moved with unusual speed and trajectories, unmistakably unnatural. Soon I saw that they were UFOs, round craft emitting shimmering blue-green light. My heart pounded as the UFOs drew closer and then began attacking the train. A beam of intense light struck the carriage and it shook violently. Passengers screamed and tried to hold on. One loud explosion ripped through the car and a section of the carriage was heavily damaged. Windows shattered, metal bent, and sparks flew from broken systems. Though damaged, the train kept going, albeit more slowly and with a rougher ride. I tried to stay calm and looked around. People were wounded by flying debris. I ran to help a woman clinging to her child, trying to comfort and protect them from shattered glass. The UFOs continued their assault, firing beams and causing explosions around the train. Suddenly, I saw the elderly man from earlier. He stood amid the chaos, watching the UFOs as if searching for a way to counter them. I ran to him, hoping he might have an answer. "What do we do now?" I shouted over the din. He turned, his expression grave. "Stay calm and trust the train. It can repair itself, but we must protect one another and not give in to panic." Following his lead, I helped others. Some passengers tried to tend the wounded, while others took cover. In that emergency, people began to cooperate, regardless of who they were. As the train pressed on, the UFOs seemed to retreat, perhaps realizing the train was tougher than they expected. The train shuddered, but pushed forward, bearing the wounds of the attack. Many cars were badly damaged. The electrical systems flickered. Although battered, the train did not stop. I sat down, exhausted and anxious. The UFO assault had shown me how perilous this journey could be. Still, I knew I had to carry on, not just for myself, but for everyone aboard.
After that first UFO attack, the train remained damaged and the atmosphere was tense. The moans of the injured, cries of mourning, and the metallic scent of blood filled the cars. We thought the worst was over. We were wrong. One evening, as the train moved through rugged hills, monstrous creatures surged from the darkness. They smashed windows and attacked passengers. Chaos erupted. Screams, groans, and ferocious roars blended into a horrific scene. I tried to protect myself and those around me, but was overwhelmed by their strength. A huge creature lunged at me. Its claws raked my shoulder. Pain pierced me and blood flowed, but I fought to break free. At that moment, the UFOs reappeared overhead, firing lasers and causing further destruction. Carriages shook and parts fell apart. People were thrown about and trapped under debris. I watched a scene of horror. The wreckage was strewn across the floor. The survivors looked like walking shadows, their eyes hollow with fear. I tried to remain steady, but the pain and terror nearly broke me. I needed to escape, but didn't know where to go. The train kept moving without a clear destination. The UFOs and monsters kept pressing their attack. There was no respite. Through the chaos, I heard a child's cry. I turned and saw a little girl trapped beneath debris. Though badly wounded myself, I crawled to her and pulled her free. I wrapped my arms around her to comfort and protect her. In that desperate moment, I knew I could not give up.
Not for me, not for her. Then the train began to slow. The attackers drew back, leaving behind devastation and silence. The high-speed train had become a battered shell, heavily damaged. For a brief stillness, I wondered if any of us would survive. The assault had taken a heavy toll on both body and spirit.
Amid the wreckage and blood, as I held the little girl, a brilliant light suddenly flooded the carriage. The light was warm and overwhelming. When I opened my eyes, I saw an angel before me. Immense white wings, a gentle face, eyes full of compassion. The angel's radiant presence left everyone stunned, and for a moment, numb. The angel walked toward me, looking at me with sympathy. "Dyson, I know what you have endured and the pain you carry. There is still hope. I have come to help you escape this strange world." A spark of hope ignited in me. How could we possibly leave this place? The train seemed to have no destination, and monsters were everywhere. The angel nodded. "This task will not be easy. You must reach the front carriage and stop the train. Then you will be able to return to your world. But the path to the front is full of danger. Many monsters lie in wait." Looking into the angel's clear eyes, I knew I had no choice. I had to accept the challenge to save myself and the others. "Tell me what to do," I said. The angel smiled, its wings stirring like a cool breeze. "You must be brave and persistent. Protect the weak and keep faith. I will be with you, guiding and shielding you." With that promise, the angel vanished, leaving me resolved. People around seemed to have regained their strength and hope after hearing the angel. They rallied, ready to face the challenge ahead. I stood and looked toward the front of the train. The way was long and treacherous, but I could not give up. I had to be courageous for everyone's survival. We moved through the carriages cautiously, alert to any sound. Each step required care. Monsters could appear at any time. People followed, forming a small but united group. We knew only cooperation and mutual protection would let us win. When we reached a carriage soaked in blood and littered with bodies, the growls of monsters came from ahead. We stopped and braced ourselves. Then the monsters attacked with terrifying speed. The battle began. We fought with whatever we could find for weapons. Screams, wars, and clashing sounds filled the cars. Blood painted the floor, but we pressed on. I had to lead and protect them all, driving them toward the front carriage. The fighting was fierce, but then a gentle light wrapped around me. The angel reappeared, using its wings to shield and guard us from the monster's blows. With the angel's help, we pushed the creatures back and continued forward. Finally, after a long, grueling fight, we neared the front carriage. Monsters still surged, trying to stop us. I knew I had to keep fighting. With determination and the angel's guidance, I reached the control cabin. The door opened to reveal the train's control system. This was our only chance to stop the train and free everyone. I put my hand on the controls, feeling the gravity of the moment. With a decisive motion, I pulled the lever, and the train came to a halt. The carriage shuddered, and for an instant, time seemed to freeze. When the train stopped completely, people collapsed from exhaustion, but their eyes held hope. The angel appeared again, smiling gently and nodding. "You did well, Dyson," the angel said. "Now you and the others will be freed. Remember, courage and unity have brought you this far." When I pulled the lever and stopped the train, a brilliant light enveloped me and the survivors. I felt weightless as the world around blurred. Everything became hazy and still. A sense of peace washed over us. The light grew so strong that I had to close my eyes. When I opened them, I found myself standing in a white void, with the angel before me, wings pure and face kind. "Dyson, you have done well," the angel said, in a voice as soft as the wind. "But your journey is not yet over. You must make a choice." The angel pointed forward, and 2 exits appeared. One led through a pure white door from which gentle light emanated. The other led through a dark door with no light. "You must choose one," the angel explained. One leads to eternal peace, where there will be no more pain or fear. The other leads back to real life, where you will face hardships and trials, but also joy and hope. I stood still, weighing the choice. The first promised endless tranquility, but life is not only joy. It also contains suffering and challenge. The second path was difficult, yet it held family, friends, and the people I loved. In the end, I chose the second path. I choose real life, I told the angel. I want to return to my family, no matter how many hardships I must face. The angel smiled warmly, satisfied. You chose well, Dyson. Remember, courage and love will guide you. As soon as I stepped through the dark door, a powerful light engulfed me. I felt as if I were being pulled through a cyclone. Everything dissolved. When the light faded, I opened my eyes and found myself sitting on the train, in a comfortable position, as if nothing had happened. People around were chatting and laughing. There were no signs of attack, monsters, or UFOs. Life had returned to normal. Was it all a dream, I wondered, feeling disoriented? But the pain and the horrifying images were still vivid in my mind. Alan, a coworker across from me, patted my shoulder. Dyson, what did you dream about? You look exhausted. I smiled weakly and shook my head. Nothing, just a dream. Everything seemed fine again. The train ran on without those strange rules or terrifying visions. I felt relieved, though puzzled by what I had experienced. Was it truly a dream, or part of that strange journey? Whatever the answer, I was back in the real world, with family, friends, and loved ones. I resolved to keep living, to face challenges and hardships, and to cherish the peaceful, happy moments. The strange train journey had ended, but the journey of life continued.
And that concludes today's story. We wish you a relaxing time and a productive day ahead. If you enjoyed the story, please support us by hitting the subscribe button and leaving a like, so you won't miss any of the upcoming tales from Nosleep Radio. See you again